I'm not really sure, but I'm really excited. All right. Welcome to Masters of Moment, brought to you by Freshworks. I'm Alan Berkson. Thanks for joining us today and taking some time to explore some topics to help you improve your customer experience and more easily delight your customers. This particular show is exciting. It's our first one. There will be many more to come, so stay tuned for that. So, speaking well has obvious advantages. It enables conversations, helps you make a good first impression, and at its best, it satisfies the soul. But speaking this well requires you pay attention to things other than the spoken word. It could be tuning into the speaker's mindset, some of the context, emotional state, tone, and more. It requires asking questions like, what do you want to convey? What do they know and what don't they know? How are they feeling right now? To bring yourself to this awareness and think of others when speaking requires some practice. In fact, it helps to think like a storyteller. And I'm really excited for my guest today, Robbie Crabtree. He is a trial lawyer, and I feel like I'm going to be on the spot now because I'm asking him questions, but somehow he's going to find a way to turn it around and grill me, but that's okay. He spent many years as a trial lawyer. He tried over 100 cases, robberies, murders, child abuse, but that's not what we're here to talk about. But because during this time, he also coached a national mock trial team and began to see how the skills, strategies, and tactics he learned in the courtroom could apply to people in any field. This realization led Robbie to what he calls performative speaking. He founded Performative Speaking to unlock the secrets reserved for trial lawyers and began teaching, coaching, and speaking to audience on how they could turn speaking into a superpower. He trained sales teams, he led courses with hundreds of people, and helped founders raise tens of millions of dollars and effectively build and lead their teams by becoming great speakers and storytellers. And so today he's here to help us learn more about performative speaking. Robbie, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Alan. I'm really excited, especially this being the first one. Excited to kick it off and really talk about some things that I think are going to leave an impact for all the audience today.
So one of the challenges, I talked to a lot of different generations, for lack of a better term, and one of the challenges that people have, particularly today, is actually having conversations, what I call synchronous conversations. Having an asynchronous conversation on chat or Messenger or something allows you time to think about what you said, read about what they said, but it also, you lose a lot of context. And so those asynchronous conversations are so rich with context and meaning, but that makes it so much harder. And I imagine that's kind of where you start with this idea of performative speaking.
100%. So the reason I actually call it performative speaking because performativity means the ability for words to bring about change. And I think that that's kind of this beautiful art when it comes to speaking. And anytime we're in a conversation, we have the ability to leave somebody feeling better than when they entered the conversation, to leave them feeling more excited, more inspired, or even just more heard than they were originally. And that change, it's like this huge ripple effect that essentially goes out into the world. And then that person's going to have a better day and they're going to change somebody else's day and make it better and improve it and improve it and improve it. And that's why I think it's so powerful when we really are intentional in the way that we communicate with people.
So one of the challenges that we have in the customer experience, and I think that we talked about this a little bit before this conversation now, is that when you make that first call, somebody's calling in and you answer the phone and they say something, but first they're probably not going to tell you exactly what the problem is because they may not even know. They're in some sort of emotional state. They don't have all the information. You don't have all the information, and now it's sort of and maybe this is part of what you're trying to do in a trial as well. But you're trying to get to the heart of what that matter is. Maybe you can walk us through. I'd love to hear what advice you'd give to that agent, that contact center person who's having that conversation.
So much is beginning with preparation, right? And thinking through, what is that person who's calling me going to be feeling? What are they going to be thinking? How are they going to be when they get on the phone? Is this a conversation they want to have or something that they're dreading? If we start to go in with that mindset, we can start to think through, well, what are the pieces that I need to bring in order to effectively communicate with them and make them feel heard, and also figure out the problem so I can solve it. So going in with that preparation helps. Then you go in, and your job really is to make somebody feel heard and validated and safe so that they can open up to you, so you can figure out what the problem actually is. Because at the end of the day, you know more than they do, but they're calling oftentimes because they're frustrated. And so it's this weird kind of dance that you've got to play around with, where they're frustrated and you're trying to help them, but because they're frustrated, oftentimes it doesn't feel like help. They just want the answer. And you have to be able to articulate and connect in a way that shows, hey, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to get to your answer, to give it to you, but I can't without the information. And so much of that is picking up on other cues and having that right mindset when you first walk into the call.
So walk me through. I call up and I say, I can't log into my software, and you guys are terrible, and I want to cancel my service. Right? That's a common thing, because it's one of the things I had somebody tell me once from a contact center point of view is, my job in the contact center is to get you back to doing what you were doing before you called me, because you never want to call me in the first place. Right? So I'm frustrated. I want to do something. Robbie, help me.
So I want to answer directly what you said, but I also want to talk about that point you made where you said the job is to get them back to doing the thing they wanted to beforehand. Well, that is part of it. You want to get them back to doing the thing that they wanted to do beforehand in a way that they feel heard and validated, that they feel better when they're doing it. Like, hey, if I have a problem next time, I know I can call these guys and they're going to fix it for me. So it's not just like I'm going back to my norm. It's actually my norm is now improved because I have this safety and this trust in the team that if something goes wrong, I can call and I'm going to get a really easy answer and they're going to be helpful. So if you call me and you are bringing this, I can't log in, your product sucks, I want to end it. I would start something very simply as, Alan, I can totally understand that. I've had that problem and it's so frustrating. And I can just imagine the types of issues that you're dealing with right now. I'd really love to be able to find a way to help you. And if at the end I help you and you still want to cancel your service, that is absolutely okay. Like, I can understand where you're coming from, because I would probably feel the same way if I was in your shoes right now. Now we've kind of we're trying to play into this empathy. We're trying to play into, I totally get this. And also by almost disarming them of hey, I'm going to solve your problem, but also if you want to cancel your subscription, that's totally fair. That's not normally what a customer is going to expect to hear, is I'm going to solve your problem and also let you cancel. So now instead of it feeling like they're just going to pitch me and be like, keep on as our customer, it's, oh no, this person actually just wants to solve my problem and doesn't really care about the business. That is an easier in to that connection. Now they feel like you're a person, not a entity in this business.
Yeah, I look, the trust part is a key. I like that you mentioned that it's not just about solving this problem. This is one touch point in what could be many interactions. And as a vendor, I'm hoping it's going to be many interactions, because you continue to be a customer. So taking it beyond the value of the resolution is one thing. The value of the relationship extends beyond the value of that particular resolution. That makes a lot of sense to me, and I hear that. The other thing that I find interesting from what you said is, it's not about necessarily, I trust that you're going to be able to help me with my problem. And I'm spoiling for a fight, or I'm upset, and you've disarmed it by saying, I'm here for you. I'm going to help you. And if it doesn't work out, you have an exit. And we'd be sorry to see you go. But so it's almost like you put everything on the table, and now we can actually get to solve the actual problem, right?
Yeah, and that's that point where you say, look, Alan, I would love to know a little bit more about what were you doing that prevented you from logging on, or what are you seeing on your screen? Or can you walk me through a little bit of what you've tried to do to fix it at this point? Because I need a little bit of information so I can help you. And again, my job here is I want to help you, Alan, to solve this problem. And again, at the end of this call, if you're like, I just don't like what your product offers, even throughout this, and you want to leave, we'll take care of that at the end too. But I want to see first if I can solve this for you. Can you walk me through what you were doing? Again, right. just setting up this, safety and trust between you and that other person of, I'm not here just to string you along and try to keep you to keep using our product. And that's what so many times we get on these customer service calls, where it's just like, I'm going to try to solve your problem and then have a great day. Well, I was frustrated when I came in, and part of the thing I said you didn't address is I want to cancel my subscription. So let's address that. Let's say, like, if you want to, we'll take care of that at the end, but let's fix the problem first and kind of take like a 2-stage approach. Because once you solve the problem for them and they realize it and they've had this great interaction with you, when you say, and now, Alan, you said you wanted to cancel your subscription. Do you want to go ahead and take care of that? They're going to say, no, this was great. Like, Robbie, you've helped me and I really feel great about working with you. I'd love to continue on. And you've dealt with this in a very easy way where it feels like you're still offering them value instead of trying to extract it.
All right. So you make it sound so easy. And I feel like I'm at one of those demonstrations where, somebody does something really cool with some gadget. And then, when I get it home, I can't do the same thing. So maybe talk to me about some of the challenges or what's the strategy for getting to the point where one of my agents or my team can be able to approach a problem like that.
So we've got to be really kind of keyed in with our ears, right? Let's pick up on their tonality. Let's pick up on how they sound. We can look at, is their voice, very like quick and short? Every answer is like, yes, that's the problem. No, I don't want to do that. Like, that's a different tone than, yeah, that's the problem. I'm really struggling with this. Those two tones are very, very different. And you can pick up on that. And if you're getting someone who's short, you need to understand how to help them get out of that, right? You need to say, hey, Alan, like, I totally understand your frustration and it's 100% valid, but I really want to try to get this answer solved for you and get you moving forward in your day. Can you give me a little bit more information than just the yes, so I can kind of resolve this problem for you, right? Like, it's essentially me, again, trying to take on a lot of, like, you can even in that tone, what you're trying to do is be very empathetic in your tone and inviting and warm to bring them into like opening up. And too many times, instead, we just try to solve the problem. And if you hear that short yes, instead of giving some of this like context of I'm empathetic towards your problem, it's just, well, have you tried this? No, I haven't tried that. Or yes, I've tried that. Have you tried this? Yes. Have you tried this? Yes. And it's just like this laundry list of, have you tried this? It doesn't feel like you're really actually trying to solve my problem. That sounds like you're reading a script and just trying to make me go through the normal steps like you would do with anybody. If I feel like I'm on a scripted call, guess what? I don't feel seen, heard, validated. And that's why making some of these personal changes and using your tone and using empathy and using bigger remarks that maybe aren't on your script can help you basically delight that customer and move them forward.
That sounds, again, it sounds like the thing to do, but it sounds like maybe, how do I teach that? How do I, or either, well, it's either how do I hire for it or how do I train it or how do I upskill for it, right? I have a team already. I'm not going to just fire them all and find people who are better at empathy, or because maybe they just haven't learned how to do it. So maybe let's take a step back. Is that something I could teach?
It is. It's a process to learn, but you can develop this, and you can do this in safe ways where maybe you're doing practice calls, right? It's not a real customer calling and you're just practicing, you're role playing it. And then you're watching the tape back, because as professionals, we should always be reviewing our work to get better. I review my work as a speaker. I'll review this live stream later and see, how did I do? How can I improve? How can I be better? Because that's how I deliver more value to people. Customer service, same thing. You should be reviewing it. So put it into these role play situations and practice it. Don't let somebody use a script. Let them just have a real conversation. Again, think about it. The person on the other side of that phone is a person. They want a conversation. They don't want a script. Conversations make us feel heard. They build that connection. And so much of that is just getting comfortable in the chaos. And we kind of talked about this earlier. It's like that firefighter. You use a great analogy. It's the firefighter who is sitting in the firehouse. Everything is fine. And then the bell goes off. And all of a sudden, you don't know what you're walking into. You don't know what the situation is. You don't know how long it's going to take. You don't know what the danger level is. But you have to appear totally calm, because that's the only way you can do your job and survive. The same is true in these situations. You've just got to be willing to say, it is chaos, it is uncomfortable, but I'm going to stay calm and empathetic and just talk through this like a normal person would.
What can I do to get to that place of calm as that person who is in that situation? And I've been there and I have my thoughts on it, I was in IT support, and I think there are some qualities about maybe it's preparation or whatever. But I'm curious, how do I get to that calm so that when I pick up that call, when I say hello or how can I help you, that I'm ready for that.
So the first part is you've got to be ready when they answer back to you. It's probably not going to be a pleasant hello to you because they're frustrated. So we've got to be willing to just take that on and not let that affect our tone, because it's very easy to get frustrated, to fight back as a human. We hear that harsh tone to us and we want to push back and just get off the phone as quickly as possible. But let's take it. Let's actually reframe that. When we feel that, let's try to spend more time with them so we can actually change that dynamic with them of really getting into their problem. And a great person to study here is what Chris Voss teaches when it was negotiation. With FBI hostages, he would go through this process with the people who are holding them hostage. You can use things like mirroring, right? Using some of those words back. Alan, I heard you say you couldn't log in. That has to be frustrating. Can you tell me kind of what you were doing before that? Now I've used the exact words that you used about you couldn't log in. Shows that I'm listening to you. Again, we also have things like that seems like an issue that would really frustrate you. That's another way of kind of getting some feedback from them instead of asking question, because sometimes there's this trap that in order to find information, we've got to ask questions. Sometimes we want to say statements. That seems like this would really frustrate you not to be able to log in. Is it and you're going to say, yeah, that does really frustrate me. Alan, I totally understand that. How do you think that we can help solve this problem and fix it? Well, you can tell me what the problem is. Alan, I totally agree with you. Can you give me a little bit more information so I can solve that problem? Now you've essentially asked me to solve your problem. And I'm saying in order to do that, I need this information. We've kind of guided you on this conversation where now you're going to have to open up because you've put the idea in place.
It sounds like, and this is exciting, it sounds like you're moving it from an antagonistic, me against you, to, hey, we're on the same side trying to solve your problem together, right?
It's a team, right? The sooner we can make that we're on this together, let's fix it, the better off you are.
So you just made me think of another challenge that we have. So somebody calls up and they've purchased some of your products, but maybe they've purchased the wrong ones for what they're trying to do, or maybe they need more. They bought a basic, but what they're trying to do is more advanced. And this is a situation, and there's been high profile things in the news about, somebody trying to, sell something more as part of a customer service call, but it's not necessarily a negative. You're still trying to get to. So how do you approach that? It's not, maybe I need to sell you something else, or maybe there's more to this, because that's, I think, is a big challenge for a lot of organizations.
Yeah, that can be very challenging in that situation where you realize the thing that they bought doesn't actually solve their problem. And what you really want to try to get in that moment is you want to try to guide them to acknowledge that they need more help. And this is right? You want them to say, I need more help, or this is the help I'm looking for. And when you hear those clues, that's when you kind of dig in a little bit more, get a little bit more information. Well, what would that kind of help mean for you? How would that actually change your situation right now? Then you can go from that and say, look, it sounds like to me, the product that you got maybe isn't doing the full thing that you need. And that might mean that you need to upgrade or actually just get a completely different product because it seems like there may be a misalignment. Is that something that you'd be open to talking about with me to see if we can find something that fits your needs better to solve this problem?
Right. No, it sounds so. Look, I think nobody wants to admit that it made a mistake. They don't want to be ashamed or seem foolish. And so finding a way to make it about, again, moving forward as opposed to, oh, you're an idiot. Why'd you buy that? That's definitely not what you need. It's more getting in their shoes and saying, hey, you must be frustrated because that's what you thought you were going to solve this problem. And here's what you got and you bought it. And it's not like, and you could probably go to the same thing about, well, look, if that's not what you want, we can refund you or whatever our options are. But I don't think that's what you want. What I'm hearing is you really wanted to solve the initial thing that you bought it for. Let's see if we can get there together.
Yeah, there's so much like what I'm hearing. It sounds like, it seems like those types of phrases are absolutely gold to drive a conversation, because what you're trying to get, that person's going to be like, yeah, that's what it is. I'm trying to solve this issue and the product that I bought doesn't do it. Look, Alan, I totally understand. that this product may not be solving what you're looking for. Can you give me some more information about what that problem is so we can figure out it together and see if there's a better solution out there for you? And it may be our product, it may be someone else's product. And if it's their product, I'm going to tell you where to go. Again, we can do a lot of disarming, even though you're going to know that you have something to solve their problem. But simply by putting this up front and being genuine, like, look, if we can't solve it, I'll tell you where you can go and find it. That immediate, like, oh, this person isn't just trying to sell me, they're actually trying to help me. There's a difference, right? Sell versus help. And sometimes that help does come from your own product and you can guide them there. But because you were willing to say, if we can't do it, I'll point you in the right direction to somebody else who can, they're now not feeling like it's this hard sell in the entire call.
And this, I think, all is building blocks towards the trust, because I think when we started by saying it's not about this transaction is just one transaction. Most companies are thinking beyond, or they should be thinking beyond more than one transaction. And what's their relationship with the customer? That's kind of why they call it customer relationship management. But what are they different? And how do I make sure that my customers are happy at each touch point and that they want to come back and do business with me? So let me see if I can pull it back a little bit more from a macro level, because I'm the chief customer officer in the company, and I have teams of people who are looking to try to keep our customers happy. And it sounds like they're conversation. My agent is having a conversation with the customer, but I have to have conversations with my agent about how they're doing their job. And so, how do I? I'm starting from day one saying I want to improve. I want to implement performative speaking, or however I want to look at it. I want to get better engagement. I want to get better trust. I want to have better interactions from that chief customer officer view. What are the first things I'm thinking about?
The first things that you're thinking of are making your team feel safe. That essentially it's not their fault. You've got to take some of the blame. Hey, I noticed that some of the ways we were training you weren't the most effective way. And we've been working to figure out what's going to be best to make you more successful at your job and have better relationships with those customers. And so we're going to bring in some new ideas, some new trainings that we think are really going to help elevate your ability to do your job better, more efficiently, and honestly enjoy it more because of the types of conversations you're having. So I think so much of it is honestly about what I call leadership language. And it's when you are taking on some sort of problem, you're always owning it as the boss, the head. It's always, I messed up. It's never you messed up. It's never the team messed up. It's I messed up. Like, we take blame and we celebrate others. When we're talking about wins, it's always the team did this. You all are the reason we were successful. You're the reason our customers love us. But when we mess up and say we need to change some things, hey, that's my fault. I dropped the ball. I'm not training you the way that you need to. And we've got some new information that's going to help us. I'd love to talk to you all about what that looks like, and also take some of your feedback in terms of, do you think this is something that would be valuable to help you grow in your career?
I think what you said about protecting your team and making them feel safe is something that most organizations miss. That the frontline employee is taking the brunt of it, and they need to know that their leadership is on their side. There's a saying, the customer is always right. I'm not sure if I agree with that, and we can have a whole session on what that means. But as a leader, I always want to make sure that my team knows that I'm on their side first, because that's how we eventually bring value to the customers, and the customers will satisfy them, and we'll find a way to get that answer. But I have their back, and I think that's kind of what you're saying is, let's put you in the best position to succeed, and it's our job to make sure that happens, right?
100%. Because if you do that, you build this trust with your team that, like, I'm never going to get thrown under the bus. And when you have that sense of security as one of those frontline people, you are willing to run through the wall for that person. And I experienced this with one of my bosses when I was a trial lawyer. And that man would basically step in front of any shot fired at us and take it himself. Anything bad, he took it. It was his fault. Anything that the office did well, he celebrated every other person. He never took any credit. And that's really what being a leader comes down to, is like, you don't need that validation, because, like, you're in a leadership position. You need your team to feel that validation and feel that safety. That's how they do their best work, is knowing I never have to worry about getting stabbed from behind me. I've always got somebody watching my six, if we're going to use like a military term, right? There's a reason why that is so valuable in the military. You have to know that you trust the guy who's behind you, and behind you is your boss and your leadership.
So, Robbie, we got a question actually from the community here, and this I think I've seen a lot of people do this poorly, and so it would be great to hear about how you think about doing it well. What are some easy ways to personalize the conversation?
Obviously using a name is one way to personalize, and it's important to do that. But I think some people make the mistake of thinking personalization with a name means saying the name every single time. Alan, this, Alan, that, Alan, this, Alan, that. And you're just like, all right, I want you to know my name, but I don't need to hear my name every single time that you're saying that to me, because then again, it feels forced. And anytime it feels forced, I immediately get barriers that go up. That I say, this person isn't serious in having a conversation. So drop the name in a couple times in the conversation, but let's be normal and just talk like people, where we're just going back and forth and back and forth. Obviously, other ways to personalize this are if you know where the person's calling from, or they give you that information, there's easy ways to talk to them about that. Now, you've got to be a little bit quick on your feet, right? So if you know someone's calling from, north, like let's say it's New York City and it's fall in New York City, you could ask, hey, like how are the leaves right now? I know a lot of my friends live in New York City, and they've been talking about how great New York City fall is. Have you kind of noticed that yet? Again, you can do something like that. You can do something where if somebody's out in LA and you're like, hey, like, have you been to the beach recently? Like, you can do, like, these are silly examples, right? Because I'm coming off the top of my head, but you have ways to figure out what it is about that person, or how are you using this in your business? Tell me a little bit about that. You can get some of that business information. And then if they say, yeah, well, I run a consulting agency or whatever, all of a sudden we know, oh, that's super interesting. Like, Alan, that's great. Like, what kind of consulting do you do? You may not want to force that early, but in later conversations, you could also say, hey, Alan, I hope that we solved your problem, because I really want to make sure your consulting agency is successful. And hopefully this takes you to that next step.
It's paying attention and showing that you've listened. So whether it's context about where they are, what they're doing, or remembering what they've said to you previously in the conversation and making sure you bring that back. Another question we got, and this is, this is probably a dichotomy of I want to get them off the phone quickly and get them back to what they're doing versus I want to keep them with a delightful experience. How engaging can you make a technical conversation? Do you aim for fast resolution or great resolution, or, I need to reset my pass. I can't get in, my password doesn't work. That's or the button, I don't know which button to push or something like that, right?
Yeah. And those are obviously, you can deal with them very quickly, right? But that doesn't mean you should just deal with it quickly to get off the phone. We still want that person feeling heard, validated, and really walking away feeling good about the conversation. So again, lean into making it great, but as fast as possible. We don't want to prolong it just for the sense of prolonging it. You should get a feel for how that, again, listen for those changes in tonality, in the way the person is approaching the conversation. Are their answers changing from very short to a little bit longer to a little bit longer? You know that you're now moving them into this kind of like opening up phase where they're enjoying the conversation. Again, you can also do things like, hey, would you like to learn a little bit more about like how we can make sure this doesn't happen in the future, so you can prevent it, so you don't have to get on another call with us? That takes it from fast to a little bit more great, because now you're being preemptive in terms of solutions instead of them having to call you again the next time it happens. Technical conversations can absolutely be still engaging and still great conversations, because treat the person like a person. A technical conversation is exactly the same. It's the technical thing is not the issue. The issue is how the person feels with that frustration. So if we focus on making it a conversation person to person, it doesn't matter what the problem is. You are solving a problem for another person who's feeling frustration or anger at that time.
I think that's the biggest takeaway right there. You're solving a person who's human with emotions and having a challenge, and it's just solving a technical issue is not necessarily addressing the holistic view of that person. All right, so one of the questions we have for our guests is, we talk about delight made easy. So tell me about an experience you had where a vendor or somebody that you were a customer of that created or helped you, with a delightful outcome experience.
Honestly, this is where I look at experiences that I've had that people just go above and beyond. And this oftentimes I'm dealing with a product and we're talking through a problem of what's going on, and they'll be listening, right? And I've had this before where they're listening to things that I'm struggling with, and it might be an issue with technology. That's an often time problem for me because I'm just terrible with technology. So I'll call and say, hey, here's what's going on with like my Notion page. For instance, Notion won't let me in. I'm really struggling to do this. Boom, boom, boom. And all of a sudden, by the end of that conversation, person will basically say, hey, I know we've kind of solved this problem, but like I wanted to point you towards some of these like free resources that we actually have on our page that you can actually learn from or have your team learn from to help you better integrate your entire company on Notion so it's easier for you to run. It's a very simple way of just knowing where to point me and say, hey, we've got free resources here to help you so you don't have to get on this call the next time with us. Something like that's super easy. Or if you're picking up someone talking about a certain issue and there's a great book around it, I'll do that with calls where I'm like, hey, I think that you'd really benefit from reading this book called Building a Story Brand. I think that you would love it and it'd be super helpful for you. Very easy way just to give a little bit more value to that person that they were not expecting on the call.
I like it because it's not trying to sell them something else, and what you said, it's easy. Delight doesn't need to be difficult; it can be easy, and it's the small things that show you. See, you heard them, you understand what they're trying to accomplish, and maybe you can help somebody get in further along in the direction. So, Robbie, let's talk to my audience. Tell them how they can get in touch with you. What's the next? If they want to keep up with things, they want to learn more about performative speaking.
Yeah, people can follow me on my social media. So on Twitter, it's at Robbie Crab. On LinkedIn and on Instagram, it's at the Robbie Crab. And then finally, if you want to follow my newsletter, it's robbiecrab.substack.com. So it's all pretty easy. A lot of Robbie Crab in there. And that's where I kind of keep people updated on courses I'm launching, programs I run around kind of training speakers, storytellers, and all these sort of things. You can also listen to me on various podcasts. But again, feel free to follow on social media where I post a lot. Try to just give people a lot of resources. Again, I love this stuff. I want people to learn the things that I learned in a courtroom and take them to all these areas of life, because it really will just change the quality of your connections. It will change the way that you engage with people, and it will just open up new opportunities for the rest of your life.
So we're popping up a feedback link here. We'd love to hear your feedback, audience. But I have to say this, Robbie, you seem too nice to be a prosecutor.
I love that work. It was great. I did it for a long time, and this is my like outside the courtroom demeanor. When you go in the courtroom, though, it's a different game. You got to turn it on because that's when you're in that chaos, right? So when we think about it, you can have that moment where it's game time, and you turn it on, and you go and do work because they were serious cases and needed serious results. But I love the work I get to do now and talk to people like yourself and just help other individuals who don't have to live in that very rough world of a trial lawyer.
Well, I'm glad you found a way to at least instead of prosecuting people, never mind. You're helping people when you're prosecuting, so you're always helping. I won't even go there. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. It's our first show, and you're our first guest. You're setting the bar. You set the bar very high, and so I appreciate you sharing some insights with us. Treating people like humans. I think that's what it comes down to. It is listen to them, validate them, and that gives you a base for having a conversation that brings value both ways, right?
100%. I like to say treat conversations like treasures. And if you do that, you're going to find a lot of success in this world.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you, everyone. Tune in next time as we continue these conversations with Masters of Moment, brought to you by Freshworks. I should be able to say that. Masters of Moments, brought to you by Freshworks. We're so excited to be here and looking forward to continuing the conversation. Catch you next time.
Thank you all.